Tough act to follow. Forgive me if I speak a little quietly. I was screaming through that whole last set. Let me take this off. Thanks to Giancarlo for putting this together, everybody. Thank you, Bhaskar, for the hosting. Thank you all for coming out tonight. And congratulations for taking another step towards unity, knowing thyself, and enjoying your Saturday night. I'm going to start with a little piece of honesty here. I thought about bringing cue cards for this, and instead I opted to write keywords in my hand. And the reason why I did that is because I've been programmed. And every day I have to do things to remind myself of what's important. And with all the external stimuli, I slip back into regularly scheduled programming. So just in case, I kept these little keywords to go to. At the end of the day though, I really know this stuff like the back of my hand. No pun intended. So, I'm going to begin with a little more honesty. Programming. I'm an orphan. I was adopted. From adoption, I went to shelters to group homes to juvenile detention centers, juvenile detention center to jail. Don't judge me, lest you be judged. It was an interesting journey. I've been rich. I mean, like $100,000 cash, bill paid, rent paid, motorcycle in the garage rich. It was the most miserable time of my life. I've been poor. I literally had to wait till midnight for the Dunkin' Donuts to throw out the garbage bag in the bin in the back. You know, they make them fresh at 6 o'clock every morning, time to make the donuts. 12 o'clock, they do nothing. I've worn 4 graduation caps, and I've been in a straitjacket. Needles and drugs in my ass. I've fought professionally, trained for the UFC, and I've been a paraplegic. I've been in a wheelchair. I've really lived, really and truly lived, and I've clinically died. I was in a coma for 2 weeks, and it seems like not a long time, but when you're in a coma, it's a really long time. And everybody asked me, what did you see? What did you hear? What happened? And honestly, for the longest time, I couldn't remember. And then it came back to me. I saw the future. And I didn't realize it until about 15 years after it happened. Man, talk about a deja vu. Besides that, I heard music. And funny thing is, the music was sung by me. I heard things like, sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. I heard, I'm just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood. I heard, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. And of course, hello, silence, my old friend. I've come to talk to you again. And then I awoke, and the first thing I saw was the sun coming through the window of the hospital room. And I realized a couple of things. One, everybody is beautiful. Life is so beautiful. Every little aspect of it. And the other was, now is all we have. There's no promise of tomorrow. So I got to work, and I started to build myself up again, pick myself up again. Literally, I was in the hospital for 6 months. I had to learn to walk again, but that's behind me. I started to work a little bit on the left brain. I went back to school. I studied journalism, public relations, and I became a statistician. I became a team leader for Ipsos Reid, one of the largest data gathering organizations in the world. I started working on the right brain. Thank you very much. I started working on the right brain, went back to what I love, being an artist, acting, writing, a poet. I became a networking entrepreneur, and I became an event planner. And I realized a couple of things after a few years of doing this. I really had built the right brain and I built the left brain, but all of this male, female, black, white, light, dark, hard, soft, hot, cold, yin yang, it's all wonderful, but the sweet spot was the gray area, right in between, right in the center. So I started taking steps to kind of try to build that a little bit, my dicephalon, as it were, my biological clock, my control room. And I came up with a few things, and I'm going to share them with you now. This is a public service announcement. I'm not trying to be a Buskillington, but the World Wide Web was introduced to us in 1990. It's only been around for 28 years. Smartphones became popular in about 2007. It's been 11 years. And in that time, almost 4 billion people are on the internet, on their smartphones every single day, and growing. Now, don't get me wrong, technology is a wonderful thing, but the irony is that like anything that we have around us all the time, we kind of take it for granted after a while. It's like, it's always going to be there, I'll use it later, type of thing. Wisdom has been replaced by knowledge. Knowledge has been replaced by information, and it's always at our fingertips, but we don't really use it. Sadly, even though we can reach across the world, we become more disconnected than ever before. Now, by extension, what do we have because of the World Wide Web? Pornography. Porn is free for the first time in history. That has a lot of implications. I remember when I had to stay up on Saturday night to watch Bleu Nuit. Or I'd watch those, pay-per-view pornography. It's all scrambled, and I'm just sitting there hoping to see just one little blue breast playing my organ. Don't judge me. I know y'all know what I'm talking about. There's two types of people in the world, those who watch porn and those who lie about it. Interesting story. Pornhub is a Montreal success story. 5 guys under the age of 30 thought, what if? And about 5 years later, went to pick up their check for $180 million. I know because I was shadow security for them, and I drove them to pick up their check. Pornography. By extension, and again, Buskillington part, please forgive me, but the divorce rate is at almost 50% right now. It's highest in Quebec than all of Canada. People just aren't getting married, and when they are, they're just breaking up. The sexual education curriculum has been removed from schools in Quebec. And I remember being taught sex ed, but it was more like procreation education. Nobody ever really taught me how to connect to the point where I was going to have sex or what happens afterwards. And now it's completely removed. We're at a really pivotal time in our history. And I think that's important because I come from Generation X. Generation Y was next, the millennials, and now we got Generation Z. And they're coming out of the womb swiping, man. And yet, ADHD is rampant in schools. People are lining up to see the guidance counselor. I remember them when there was 1 or 2 kids who had to sit at the front of the class to really hear what the teacher was saying, right? So, why does all this matter? First of all, I'm not one to present a problem without a solution. Where do we go? As we are the final frontier, the last generation after the internet, and before we fly ahead to God knows where without really any direction. It's up to us to really ground the next generation and remind them or tell them, teach them what it's like to go outside and play, instead of the virtual reality of the Grand Theft Auto, beating up a homeless person and a prostitute with a baseball bat to steal their car. what are we heading towards? I propose that the answer is to know thyself. Everybody throws that around, right? Know thyself. The question is how to know thyself. And I propose it is the 5 senses. Yes, going back to basics and rebuilding the foundation. We don't even really know. We don't know what it feels like to see, to hear, to smell, to touch, to taste. And the beauty of it is in its simplicity. That if I were to just say to you all right now, or ask you, what do you see? Bombarding, right? Let's break it down. Color, size, shape. What do you smell? Gives you an opportunity to take a breath, right? And we forget to breathe sometimes. Thank you for that. What can you taste? You taste the last thing that you drank or you ate, and you taste yourself. Do you think about what it's like to taste yourself? What do you hear? And what can you feel? What do you touch? And everybody thinks about touch as what comes into contact with your fingertips. But it is the floor on your feet or your chair. It is the clothes on your body. And rising up, it is the necklace on your neck, the earrings on your ears, the hair on your head, the temperature in the room, the ventilation on your skin. This is all touch, and we can go deeper into the rabbit hole. But the point is that if we come back in touch with each of our 5 senses, we come back in touch with ourselves. And it's an individual experience. Each of us has our own perception, and our perception is our reality. Yeah. So the beauty of it is that you get to know yourself and your experience, your relation with the world, and every individual experience is unique. And by extension, by knowing yourself and getting in better touch with yourself, you connect with other people better. And at a certain level, you're just vibrating that energy, and you just are a magnet for people who are like you. And you have compassion for people who are not. And I want to propose to you one more thing. I probably don't have much more time, so I'm going to try to speed it up. I'm usually more of a soft-spoken, slow-speaking guy, but I really want to get this out tonight. We normally think of senses as having 5, okay? I propose to you that there are at least 8, and rising. We talk about the brain just being using a fraction of the brain's capacity. Well, this is an example. For example, we'll start with touch, and we'll start from the feet up, and to the hands, and to the neck, and from the neck, most of the senses start, right? Because we have taste, that is instinctual, our gut instinct. We have smell, that is nostalgic and connected to our memory. We have sight, sound, which is equilibrium and balance. We have sight, which is chronobiological. It's all about the light that you see, and it's all connected to the sun, but that's another conversation for another day. And then we have the mind. And without this control room, nothing else matters, right? And they have to have this constant back and forth, the other 5 senses and the 6th. And then we have intuition. What is considered to be the 6th sense is really the 7th. And the 3rd eye, the pineal gland, in the center of the mind. And I'll tell you something, when all the other 6 senses come together in a culmination, an amalgamation, in one sense, in your intuition, what a feeling. And then there's the 8th. It is called magnetoreception. Yes, it's a thing. I'm not thinking about any X-Men type stuff, and that's probably where they got it. But magnetoreception is right here. And it's your compass, and everybody's got it. And it's the way that the birds know which way is north, south, and when to fly south, and how they fly in perfect formation, and how when they fly in flocks, they're not bumping heads and falling back to the earth. They don't have to think about it, because they don't have all this external stimuli blocking their compass. So, if we start with our senses, one by one, we're going to build our way up. We can make it to the 8th. much more easily than you think. We're much more powerful than we know. And who knows how much farther we can go, to infinity and beyond. I want to say to you that I'm open, available anytime to share my knowledge with you. I've spent my whole life researching this. Like I say, I've been to hell and back, and I wouldn't change a thing. Because if I hadn't, I wouldn't know what I know today. I wouldn't be who I am today. And I'm just going to charge $5 wherever you are. I'll come to you because I want to share this with you. I really do. So I'm not very good at promoting myself, but I've been doing a lot of this homework, and I really think it's time that I start to share it with everybody. Because again, there's no promise of tomorrow. So it's basically senses, 5 ENSES, and I'll be your sensei at Raw Boz, Instagram, Facebook. Hit me up. I'm always available 24 hours a day. I'll respond. You'll be surprised how quickly I'll come back to you. And I'm open to any thoughts, feedback, suggestion that you have. And I'm more than willing to come through and share. So if my vision has touched you today, I would like to hear from you. I'm Rob Oz. One love.